Right, exactly. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another RevGenius webinar. This time we have some awesome people to talk to you all about how to overcome demo anxiety. We've got Kimara Moodley from Demostack, RevGenius, and Nick Capozzi.
Yeah.
Take it, Raj.
Sorry, I didn't know that was my cue. And naturally my phone rang like right when you said my name. And I was like, oh God, I got to silence that.
Yeah, no worries. Everybody who's here, nice to see you. Why don't you drop where you're from in the chat, and we'll see what we got in terms of spread here.
What's our layout here? I'm in Chicago. Nick, you're around. You're you're in Phoenix, right?
Yeah, I'm a East Coast Canadian living in the blue skies of Phoenix, Arizona.
Living in the desert. Kamara, where are you?
I'm in Irvine, in Orange County, so Southern California.
I'm in California too. I'm in the Bay Area though.
I used to be up there for about 14 years of my life, and then moved to sunshine and water.
Oh, yeah. Water that you can actually get into, because if anyone has been to a beach in San Francisco, you know that water is like frigid.
There is some good surf up there, though.
Yeah, I hear that. I actually have never surfed in my life, but
as long as you invest in a wetsuit, you're okay.
Exactly. So here's an agenda for us today. We'll intro the panel, and then we'll get into the meat and bones of 3 major pieces to overcoming demo anxiety. Some housekeeping. The chat is there, so feel free to post your questions in the chat. I'll try to field them through as we go along. I'm going to shoot over a poll. You guys feel free to answer the poll as we go along as well. And we do have Q&A at the end, a dedicated time, so don't worry, your question will get answered one way or another.
Ashok's from Toronto, so I better get a good question out of you, buddy. If you're gonna
All right.
What's up, Ashok? I've seen Ashok's been on like the last 4 or 5 webinar related things that I've done.
Oh,
good to see you, or good to have you, Ashok.
We have a fan here.
I think so.
Okay, first up, we have Kimara Moodley, Senior Account Executive at Demostack.
Yeah.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for taking the time today. I work as a senior account executive at Demostack. We're a brand new startup that launched officially in March of this year, but I've been selling for many years, from back-end software to front-end software, as well as middleware. I love the business of sales. I started in healthcare consulting, funny enough, but I've definitely always done some sort of sales, whether that's retail or food and beverage. And it's really fun helping people and helping guide them towards a decision that is optimal for both parties. I'm originally from South Africa and then made my way to the US in 1995. So I've been here since. So from California, though, that's where I've been since 95, and kind of just moved all over the coast. Now I'm in Orange County.
Wow.
And there, I'm a huge Britney Spears fan. So the news about Britney has been so positive over the past few
years. You have just been so in on that end of the conservatorship. I didn't even know conservatorship was a word until that story broke out.
I haven't been following, but I remember the very first music video, the school where the music video they're in school.
Maybe one more time. Come on.
Yes, exactly.
It's iconic.
That is really cool. I did not know you were from South Africa. That's awesome.
I know. If I would have known, I would have brought my Springboks rugby jersey.
Oh, I know. That is one thing I miss, is the rugby.
Hi from Puerto Rico. All right, next up is RevGenius, founder of Startup Hype Man. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you. I've actually been to South Africa, but not to Durban. I went to Cape Town and Joburg. Probably my favorite place I've ever visited. So hopefully I'll get to go back and go to Durban. Yeah, what's up, everybody? My name is Rajiv Nathan, a.k.a. Raj Nation. As you can see, I'm married to the game. That's my experience. I'm the founder and chief pitch artist at a company called Startup Hype Man. I have a lot going on in my life, including being a yoga instructor, a hip-hop artist, a professional ring announcer for combat sports, as well as, an entrepreneur doing the whole startup hype man gig where we work with companies to help them not suck at how they pitch themselves. I thought some cool stuff to put in here was that, we've done some cool work that has helped a lot of teams, specifically on the demo call process with their messaging and their call structure. But I think what's also important to know is when I was in college, I thought sales was the ugliest word in the dictionary. Never thought I would end up doing anything remotely related to selling. Ended up working in an account executive role out of college. And then and actually that was like the account manager side. So like we would do like client services and upselling. And then while I was at that company, I transitioned onto the sales side, and I was terrible while I worked there. I didn't get any training at all. And I can say I once blew a $10 million plus annual deal while I was on a performance improvement plan. So you can imagine that didn't go very well. Didn't go over well with my superiors. But I have a lot of lessons learned from all the bad stuff that I once did. And I do a pretty good impression of Barack Obama.
Wow. We have to hear that at some point.
Yeah. You want to do it now?
Oh.
Well, you kind of have to, bro.
Yes. Maybe you can narrate over Nick's bio here.
All right, I'll give you 10 seconds on Obama here.
Okay.
Now look, I'm not going to sit here and let startup hype man take over for the introduction of Nick Capozzi. Nick, President Biden would like to hear from you now.
Well, hold on. Wait. Did you call me Biden, bro?
I said President Biden would like to hear from you.
Okay. I was gonna say. I only say that because I'm Canadian. I have no political affiliation.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
So, great job, Raj. How do I follow that? I don't know. My name is Nick Capozzi. I founded salespitching.com, and I have a kind of really unique background. I was in radio in Toronto, Canada for about 5 years. And one day at a party, someone said, "Can you do that radio thing on a stage?" And next thing I knew, I stepped onto a cruise ship in Miami. And I spent almost 20 years in the cruise business. And what we did was we presented live all the duty-free shopping. You think liquor, tobacco, it's really watches and jewelry. And so I have like 20,000 hours of presenting live to 500 people at a time. And I trained and developed like 800 people to do that job on cruise ships over the years. So I've always trained people with presentation skills. So, overcoming demo anxiety is kind of right up my wheelhouse. And then I also do a lot of sales content on my LinkedIn page, which is Nick Capozzi. Feel free to connect with me. And if you ever need a cruise recommendation, I'm your guy.
I think I want to go somewhere this next summer, or maybe winter. Winter's a good time for cruises, right?
Go to Alaska in the summer. Alaska's where you want to go in the summer.
Amazing. Thank you all for introducing yourself. So now let's get right into it. Where does demo anxiety come from? So as you guys are coaching people, what are you seeing as the sources of some of these anxieties?
On my end, I think what I have seen causes a lot of anxiety is this pressure to have to remember a lot of things. Especially if there's like a talk track you're supposed to stick to. How do you pull that off live? A lot of the companies that I've worked with, that seems to be a big area where they struggle. And also, how do you ask questions in a way where it doesn't feel like you're forcing it, or that you're kind of, again, like sticking to like a BANT script. Those are some of the things that I've seen before.
Yeah. How about you, Nick?
A lot of times, a lot of people I deal with, it comes down to the confidence of it. Right? How to actually be ready to go out and feel good, like you own the room. And that's one of the things that I always come back to is, the easiest way you can do that is two things, in my experience. One is have a script. And we were talking, Raj and I were talking the other day, and we were like, have you ever had a job selling where you weren't provided a script? I always have. And if I didn't, I would write one up. But memorizing the script and knowing it up, down, left, right, till you don't need it anymore, then you're talking from a place of knowledge. When you talk from a place of knowledge, you're going to be way more confident. The other hack that I have that I usually deal with people on this is people don't want to watch their own tape. They don't want to watch the recording of what they did. There is no better way to self-coach and self-correct in a minimal amount of time than by watching a tape, because you'll find your crutch words, you'll find your negative words, you'll find, where you're actually pausing, what you missed. So those are the two big things for me. If you're prepared, you're going to be a lot less anxious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. How about you, Kamara? What are you seeing on your end?
Yeah, I think as a rep, demo anxiety for me comes from not knowing exactly what to present that might be relevant to my audience. A lot of times I have tons of calls, and when there's so many calls, I don't have enough time to prepare. And then when I get on the call, sometimes there's different people on the calls, like different personas that I maybe didn't prepare for. And I just thought was looking at the first person that I had connected with. And, not having the ability to really know what I'm showing content-wise that would be relevant to them causes me a bit of anxiety, because it seems like it's going to be a fail. I saw a couple of the comments here, and fear of failing. I think that's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was going to say real quick. So Summer said, drawing a blank. A great tip for making sure you're on pace is to just bullet point out like 20 different points, not more than that, along your kind of talk track, and just have that on a sticky note next to you can have it open up in a browser. You can literally have it on a Post-it next to your webcam, but that way you can always bring yourself back, right? If you ever get lost, you can tether back.
Yeah. And I'd like to point out so far in the poll that what's causing the most demo anxiety are surprises that pop up while you're demoing a product, right? So maybe your demo instance fails, or your Wi-Fi goes out, or something happens and your demo comes crashing down around you. Are you seeing that too, Kamara?
Yeah, that's definitely something that I have been privy to in my sales career, is just being in an environment that may not be stable, and perhaps even clicking on something and it shows something you weren't prepared to show because product was updated. That kind of happens when I'm in a production environment doing demos, which has been my historical career, and my sales career has always been out of production in terms of demoing. Yeah, so it's about how to have that confidence, to Nick's point, to be able to pivot and to navigate the conversation in a different way, to get around the fact that the technology might actually not be showcasing what you're supposed to be talking about. So it's definitely having the ability to build relationships, rapport building, but also to hone in and ask those right questions. So if you do have your script that you're following, or your little Post-it note of reminder questions, it's just being able to navigate the conversation in a different direction to do more discovery, as opposed to going straight to product if the product is having an issue and you're having a technical hiccup.
Yeah, that's actually a great segue into the next point, which is asking the right discovery questions to help ease some of this anxiety around demos. So how else can you work on getting to a place where you're comfortable before having a discovery call? Ooh, pause share on Zoom when in doubt of a technical flare-up. That's pretty good.
I just read that and I really like that tip, because I've used it before, but not enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually forgot that was a thing there. You could like pause the screen or whatever.
Yeah.
Or just pull it down momentarily. Who wants to kick off? Kamara, do you want to kick us off on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing here, it's, this is kind of like sales 101, but open-ended questions. And it's really easy to get away from asking open-ended questions and just going straight to the yes/no questions if you're trying to talk about features within a demo. So I think the best thing here is to ask open-ended questions, but to also listen. Because then when you're listening to the responses, you can navigate the conversation in a way that is more relevant to the person you're speaking to, because you're really taking into account what they're saying back to you and how they're answering. And you can start to understand what you even should show in the demo to get rid of that demo anxiety a little bit, since you have more ability to show what's relevant to the person you're speaking to.
Love
As
that.
you're doing your discovery, always take notes. This is something everyone misses, right? I always have a notepad and a pen at the ready, because they're going to say something critical. And if you can find the why now, they're way more likely to buy, right? Because there's always a reason. So anytime I'm doing a demo, I'll ask someone, okay, so Asia, why are we having this conversation today? Well, my boss wanted to. Okay, but why? Well, because my boss wanted to. but keep pushing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, my boss wanted to, because once a quarter he gets upset about bingo, and then that becomes the string that you continuously pluck, right? So understanding their why now is one of the most critical, in my experience, or one of my favorite discovery questions by far.
Oh yeah.
So you both said some interesting stuff there.
Well, thanks, Raj.
On the taking notes part, I think the key of that is that you're taking notes by hand. I know some reps like to type their notes as they're listening, and two things. One, it just creates a terrible background noise of keys clanking. But also, and then potentially if you're on a laptop, then your screen starts shaking from typing. The other thing too is the recall is so poor if you're typing notes versus handwriting them. I don't remember where the study was done, but there was a study done several years ago where they administered an exam to a college class where half the class in the build up to the exam took notes only by hand and the other half took notes on computer. And what they found was that the people who took notes on the computer, their notes were more accurate, but their recall of information was much poorer because they were listening to try to catch every single word as opposed to listening to, like if you're writing by hand to take notes, what you have to do is listen, process, and then output the information all in real time. So you're actually analyzing as you're listening then, which is much better for recall and then gives you something to be able to speak to throughout your calls. So if anyone here is dead set on typing up your notes, I mean, the science says you really should not be doing that. And instead you should be taking them by hand. And you know what? Maybe you get sloppy handwriting, but I actually think in some cases that can be grounds for like a follow-up, like, hey, my handwriting was really bad. I want to make sure I captured what you said, especially if they're like ghosting you. What did you say around this part? Because all I have is chicken scrap. You can send a photo of like, your bad handwriting in your notebook.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. There's something really also cathartic I find about writing things by hand. Like I still take notes on a notepad and then I transfer them somewhere else later.
A lot of folks also are relying on just the video recording technology and output of transcripts these days. So a lot of reps tend to not take notes at all. I highly recommend taking notes, and I do agree with handwriting your notes because the clanking is problematic, the clacking of the typing. But don't just rely on looking at a video or a recording of the call or the demo that you just ran. The chances are you're not going to go back and watch the whole video over and really get much from it. So definitely take those notes. Another good question to ask when you're doing discovery is what the impact will be. Like if you could solve the customer's problem or the challenge that they're facing, how is that going to impact them? And you can get a lot of information out of them in terms of what it truly means and where is the driver for why they're looking at your technology.
I want to add on to that. So Kamara, earlier you said like avoid asking yes or no questions, ask open-ended questions. And of course, people should be doing that. But I don't want anyone to think that like if you ask a yes or no question, like you're screwed.
Right.
I think they can be used tastefully and as a way to ladder up to a deeper question. So, is that a problem for you? Like that's a yes or no question. And a lot of times people say, yeah, and they'll expand. But if they don't, then you can say, well, how so? Right. And then it's like a two-parter, but it's still the same question. Mm-hmm. The concept that I like to frame this under is I just call them like 300 level questions. So if you remember from college, like you had 100 level courses. And then as you got deeper into a subject, it was like 200 and 300 level. And 300 level questions, I think, is like the ability to do advanced discovery that doesn't just sound like you're banting someone. And whenever I'm the buyer, I get so annoyed when a person is clearly just banting me, right? Budget, authority, need, timeline. One example that I think would be an easy execution of this, that's a more advanced way to ask a question, is around timing. So Nick, earlier you said like that question of, hey, why are we having this conversation now? I like that a lot. I think with the reality from all the calls that I've observed, the standard way a person will ask about timing is they will say, what's your timeline for this? And they just kind of like leave it at that. And then the prospect will be like, oh, we want to get this live in Q4. And so then they go into their CRM and they forecast December or whatever. They forecast November because they say, oh, Q4. And then inevitably their forecasting is way off. When I think about timing, I like to think about it as the timeline that got us here and then the timeline that gets us there. So the two-parter I like to use and I'll teach people on is that question, Nick. And you say, I'm just curious, how come we're having this conversation now and we didn't have it like 2 months ago, or we're not having it like 2 months from now? And what you're doing is getting them to tell you the story of what led to today and what's driving, like, coming out of today.
Yeah.
And then what they'll inevitably tell you is all that. And then you'll probably get a marker of like when they want to go live by, right? And then you got to like temper that and say, okay, so January, what happens if you don't go live by January? And now they have to prove to you that January is a real timeline. They have to tell you if there are implications of hitting that or not. And then if some people will be like, no, we have to, because there's a full website overhaul taking place and this has to happen before that. Or they'll be like, well, I mean, if it went to February or March, like, that wouldn't be that big of an issue. I'm sure we could work around that. Now, January is not a real January. So it's like, it just builds on what both of you have said, which is how do you're getting beneath the surface of whatever they tell you up front and almost getting them to prove to you that what they're saying has actual merit to it.
That's great strategy. I love that.
Oh, that's brilliant. I'm learning so much.
I'm learning so much. Yeah. I do this every day.
Yeah,
I'm taking handwritten notes.
I know.
No,
I'm working on it. I'm working on it. So one of the things that I always find, and it doesn't really necessarily tie into discovery. Well, actually it does, right? About building a little bit of rapport with the person. And I'm going to caution when I say this. I came in the cruise ship industry in the most B2C environment that ever existed. And when I got into tech and I got into this B2B world and it was like straight to the agenda, I was like, whoa. And I got in, some debates on Clubhouse or LinkedIn about this, but there's something to building at least a little bit of rapport, or at least putting some cards up your sleeve. And what I mean by that is if I'm going to have a conversation with Kamara, I'm going to take 2 minutes before our call. I'm going to open up her LinkedIn profile and I'm going to look for some Easter eggs in there, right? Where did she go to school? Does she have any unique accreditations? Do we have people in common? One of the best relationships that I built in the last couple of years was someone actually used to work with my brother-in-law, completely different field. But when that happened, it was like, hey, do you actually know him? She's like, I used to work with him. Changed the whole dynamic of the conversation, right? Another great time, I noticed that a guy had a minor league hockey coaching accreditation. So I wove in hockey real quick into the story. We wound up spending 20 minutes talking about hockey, and then that 5 minutes doing a demo, and the next 5 minutes was him saying, what are next steps, right? And what's amazing about that is, I'm not saying to go and force that, but if you find that natural relatability to someone, what happens is now you can build a champion on their side. And the reality is that if you're selling a widget, there's 10 companies selling the same widget that's very close. But if I build a champion, someone that actually now wants to get to know me because I'm starting to get to know them, what happens is I might be in the top 3 after that first conversation just because of that, right? So just taking the time to just spend a couple minutes, and literally it's just minutes, and there might be nothing there. But you know what? Maybe Kamara and I went to the same college, or maybe, you know what? Maybe I'm from Durban, South Africa originally too. Like, oh my gosh, I just have to, if I may, you're from Durban? So am I. I'm not. But just again, having those bullets in your gun, you might only use them 1 out of 10 times, but that 1 out of 10 time that you get to use it, it's amazing.
It has this level of personality, but it also just gets personal really quickly. And it gets your prospect to connect with you in a different way. So when they leave the call, they don't just think of, oh, I just saw another product, I just spoke to another sales rep. They remember you as a person. And so then the next follow-up and the next calls you have, it's just continuous value add and continuous relationship building. And at the end of the day, when you're asking them to purchase, they have this relationship with you. So it's almost like they would feel bad if they don't buy as well. There's another way in terms of a tactic.
And it's very difficult to say no to you. And I'll give you an example right now. Ashok, who's online, who I know apparently he hangs out with Raj on some of these webinars. I'm going to ask, what part of Toronto are you from, Ashok? And it might take, if he's even paying attention or if he takes a minute to type it. But you know, that's what I'm looking for. And this rapport building came from cruise ships, where I was this one tiny revenue department, and there were way sexier revenue departments. People wanted to go to the casino. They wanted to go to the spa. They wanted to go see the sun because it's January. They don't want to come to a dark theater and listen to someone pitch duty free. So I had to go around the ship and just build rapport with everybody. So where are you from? Where are you visiting from? And as a Canadian, one thing I learned, you know, working in the American space, was that Americans love to talk about where they're from. It's very tribal, right? It's true, right? My school is better than your school. I'm from Wisconsin. Hey, Minnesota. There you go, right? So, but when you start to learn that and start to develop these stories. So Ash is from North York. So Ash, I grew up in Markham, right? So I spent a lot of time in North York. I was actually in Toronto a couple of weeks ago visiting. It was my first time back in 18 months. So, you know, do me a favor. And actually, Ashok, I'm going to give you a list of restaurants that I just want you to go and eat at, and just in my honor, because I miss a lot of the home cooking back home. So
nice. And please don't ask. I don't know about y'all, but I hate talking about the weather.
Oh yeah.
It's cold here. It's hot there. We all chose to live where we live. We've made our decisions. Let's just be at peace with that.
Okay, I'm with you, Raj. But you know what's interesting? Okay, let's say you find nothing, and I'm talking to you in Chicago, and I just Google Chicago and news. Yeah. Oftentimes, so you know, I was talking to someone a few months ago, and it had just snowed in Austin, Texas, before the big ice storm they had in February. And it was like, hey, did you go out and make snow angels, right? It never snows in Austin, right? So you can play that card, but here's
that's good.
But here's one of the things I do when I was training people, because when I was training people on cruise ships, they weren't Canadian or American that were working for me. They were South African, they were Indian, they were Serbian. So how do I teach someone from Belgrade how to interact with Debbie from Des Moines, Iowa, right? So I would get them to find where you're from opening line. Maybe it was food. Maybe it's skiing. Maybe it's something that they were passionate about. Food's an easy one to go to. So the minute anyone from New Mexico would get on the ship, I'm like, oh, you're from Albuquerque? No way. How does the rest of the country not know about Hatch Green chilies? And you would see the jaw drop, right? And they're like, you are so local. Now I have a new best friend. And you know what? That person's going to come to my dark theater the first sea day and not go hang out at the buffet in the sunshine because I knew about Hatch Green chilies. And you're
really building up this dark theater as like a threatening place on the cruise ship.
Be there.
But you know what, too? I'm sorry, I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but this is another thing that I find interesting. How many major U.S. cities are we selling into? 20, 25? What do you know about Denver? What do you know about Seattle? What do you know about Boston? Right? It doesn't take long to build these personal data banks of talking points in those places. So if I'm talking to someone from, you know, Denver, Colorado, I got 30 things to talk about. Now I've built that up over the years, but if you just have one or two or three, right, about whatever it is you like, that's local. And occasionally they'll just close the door. They're like, no, you know what? I've never been to the Rocky Stadium. I'm not a baseball fan. Okay, cool. Now we'll pivot to the agenda. But if they're like, oh, you know what? Actually, my family has season tickets. Oh, no way, you're kidding? Changes the dynamic.
Yeah, Ashok actually, to touch on this, is rapport building more important than building credibility with the prospect? Or is it maybe like the same thing?
They kind of go hand in hand.
They do go hand in hand, right? Because people buy from people that, sorry, you're getting me revved up. This is what I talk about all day. People buy from people they like. People buy from people they trust. So if you build rapport quickly, you're gaining that now, oh, wait, this guy's a local. There's a trust factor. If I'm traveling around the world and I meet someone else from Toronto, there's a trust factor there, right? Built in immediately. So ergo, you've earned the credibility by finding that rapport point.
But that goes back to how you're using these points of facts that you're researching, right? So if you're talking about where they went to school and you obviously didn't go to school there, maybe don't use that as your point. Because that's where the rapport and the credibility piece could take a negative dive or, you know, nosedive downward if you seem like you're being fake. So you really have to find something you're passionate about. To Nick's point, you know, food's a big one. That's a really good one. If you're passionate about food, or whether it's sports or theater or whatever it is, and you've done the research and see they're in a location where there's a specific food item you like, that's going to have a more authentic feel when you bring that up in your rapport building kind of conversation.
100%.
I've gotten prospected before where they try and build that like geographical familiarity when they have none. Like one person, I went to DePaul University and our mascot is the Blue Demons. And the email said, "Hey, Raj, my cousin went to DePaul also, and every Thanksgiving would brag about how great of a school it was." And then it went on with the email. And then at the end was like, "From one blue demon to another." And I was like, how? The cousin you saw once a year?
Yeah.
But you know what? I'll just circle back and I'll math this out real fast. 1 out of 10 times, you're going to find a real, genuine talking point, and you invested 2 minutes in that LinkedIn profile research. So that means you 20 minutes, but 20 minutes to do 10. One will work, but that one changes your sales pipeline.
And your confidence.
Not that I'm passionate about this at all. No, it does. It does change your confidence, right? Because again, now you've built rapport with them instantaneously, right?
Yeah. So maybe you can feel at ease going into your demo.
Yeah, because then you have the credibility piece too once you've built that rapport.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's segue that.
We went off on that topic, man.
Yeah.
A few of the topics in here, I'm like, oh man, I got to be careful. I got to pull myself back because I could talk for an hour just on that one subject.
Yeah, yeah.
Demos is what we do, right, Raj?
Yeah.
On the note of like personalization and rapport building and tailoring demos to your prospect, we saw that people are anxious around surprises popping up when you're demoing product, but have you found that you can have some demo anxiety if the content you are presenting isn't relevant to your audience? How do you go about figuring out what's relevant to show in the demo?
Yeah. From a sales perspective, I would say it's all about those discovery questions and how you listen, right? But before that, before you even hop on the call and you're doing all of that LinkedIn research, figuring out the kind of company you're speaking with, what does the person you're speaking with do at the company? You can kind of get some understanding and ideas about potentially what could be valuable to them in your product that you're selling, right? Because you obviously know your product. So I personally do this type of preparation and go into my demos and don't just show a harbor tour of the product. I'll instead focus on certain areas that are maybe relevant to that certain buyer persona or profile. Maybe somebody is in leadership that I'm speaking to. They might be really interested in analytics and metrics and data points. Whereas if I'm speaking to a person who's evaluating to actually use the tool set, maybe they're more interested in the features and how easy it is and quick and saving time in terms of putting out whatever it is you're implementing with the tool. So I think that's the best way for you to start to tailor. But taking it a step further, when you think about the rapport building piece and all this research you're doing into their schools and all the stuff that you might want to bring up in the conversation, that kind of information also goes well if you kind of put that content in your demo or in your slides, whatever it is you're showcasing on these calls with your prospects. So as an example, when I demo, if I'm speaking to a company that's like a media company, like a Disney, as an example, who I've worked with before, I love to put their character names somewhere in my demo text or anywhere that I can put that in, because it just gives it this more personal feeling. And it might not even be functionality of your app, but just seeing something that's resonating with the buyer on the screen, they get excited. And it goes back to that credibility, the rapport building, all of that. And all of a sudden, you have a different level of engagement.
Brilliant.
That is brilliant.
It's funny you mentioned that, Kamara, because one of my clients in the past, they defaulted their test demo environment to just be Game of Thrones characters, but it only landed like half the time because they'd say, "Oh, do you watch Game of Thrones?" And the person said no. Well, they're like, "Oh, well, these are Game of Thrones names," and it didn't hurt them, but it also is like, I think there's such better opportunity, like you said, to just use things that might be relevant to them. The two things that I think come to mind for me with this are making sure you are showing like relevant industry. So, in the case of Disney, right? Let's say you were demoing another client who was like a small business.
Yeah.
If you show them, hey, here's how we do it for Disney, they're just going to think the whole time, I'm not Disney. This will never work for a small organization like ours. And I think what I see happen a lot is this over reliance on big logos. But big logos are irrelevant if it's not within your customer profile that you're talking to.
Exactly.
And then the other aspect is being able to talk in a way that relates back to what they have told you earlier. So assuming you've done your healthy discovery, like we talked earlier, instead of just saying, hey, here's this widget, here's what it does, you say, remember how earlier you said you were having a problem with this thing? Well, let's look at how we actually solve that and make sure you never have to deal with it again. And then you show that part, right? So it actually makes what you're saying relevant to them as opposed to just a blanket walkthrough of features.
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. I think too, it's really important to know if you're using slides to know exactly what they are, because a lot of times what I'll do is I'll skip 2 or 3 if it's not relevant to the questions that I got in discovery, right? And I think a lot of people feel they just have to be so rigid about going through the script. There's a fluidity to it, right? That's why having your bullet points on a Post-it note is great, because sometimes I'll jump ahead 3 slides and then go back 1 on purpose because they said something and I want to lay out breadcrumbs in a certain way that, well, my deck wasn't set up that way. So just, it comes back to what I said before, knowing your script and then now knowing your deck. So if you know it, like, here, I'll give you an example. How well do you know your national anthem? Probably up, down, left, right, right? And if I said a certain line in the middle of the Star Spangled Banner, you could pick it up from there, right? That's how well you want to know. You want to be committed to your script. And when people say, Nick, because one of the things I deal with a lot is people lacking confidence. You're confident if you know it, right? I could, so I would have people off the coast of Japan on cruise ships that I was coaching. And, they would tell me, Nick, I don't feel good about it. And then I would watch their tape, right? It would take a week. I would watch their tape by the time it got to me. And I'm like, you don't know your script. You are all over the place. You're making it up. In Canada, it's what we call your skating. Okay. You look terrible. You sound terrible because you don't know it. But if you know it and you know it, then you can add the theater, right? And adding the theater is how you keep people engaged.
Awesome. That's awesome. That's really great.
Stuff, people.
Yeah, know your stuff. So some organizations, maybe multiple teams or departments are involved in tailoring and customizing demos. Who on your side is involved in that? Maybe Kamara.
Yeah. Who on my team is involved in tailoring? Yeah. So, it really depends on the organization. I'm one of the reps who really likes getting into product and being technical. But when you're trying to do excessive tailoring, like above and beyond just text, like think about images, graphs, charts, there's a lot of things that are showcased in a demo that if you could change it, it would be very impactful for the prospect. But, those things require engineering efforts. It's typically sales engineer first or demo engineer. There's a few different titles, solutions architects, solution consultants. But then, if you're changing the actual product or your demo instance, it's typically engineering that needs to be involved. And it becomes kind of difficult to do that at scale when you have a ton of demos. So that's where you can start to think about, okay, how else can I get creative with this? And that's really where Demostack comes in, to be honest. That's why I came to this company, because our tech can do that. But I think with regard to tailoring, it's what would make sense to get the deal across the line, but is also very valuable to the prospect. So it might be just text that can do it in the case of Disney I talked about. But to Rajiv's point, it's not going to make sense if you're speaking to a small business and showing such large business types of data or metrics. So you want to be sure that you're doing the things that make sense for the org and the persona that you're speaking to then also drive your deal. And use the appropriate team members to help you. So sales engineers there would be your best point of contact to help create those kinds of tailored demos. And if they need to, they can likely work with engineering to get things done dependent upon who the opportunity is for and revenue size and all of that.
Yeah, I actually, from my perspective as someone who buys software, when I want a demo, I want to see the actual product. How do you decide? And I've been in demos where I just get, they walk through a slide deck. So, and then I'm like, wait, I want to see how this works. How do you decide when to do like a deck demo versus a product demo?
I'm a fan of always showing product. So I show product on the very first call. I think it's important to give a lay of the land, though, right? Not everyone loves slides. So I do open up with an agenda, and I'll ask the question, because there are some prospects who hate slides. And if you show a slide as well as you might be able to build rapport and as pretty as your slide might be, they might just really be turned off if you show it. It's that kind of person that does not like slides. So I'll typically ask and say something to the extent of, I have a few slides. It's just an overview and a background of the company, but I'm going to then hop into a demo. Is that okay with you? You know, are you good with that? More often than not, they say yes. And then they do ask questions, but it's about also doing discovery when you're in the slides. So I do a bit of a combination of both, unless somebody is very adamant about no slides at all, then I'll hop straight into the demo. But I do think it's important to show the product, as long as you have that confidence to showcase it and the ability to showcase it. I'm not sure, but it's actually a good question to ask the group here. Are all of you able to actually show product? So I've definitely been at orgs as well, where it was hard to get access as a rep to show demos.
Interesting.
You know, something else that's interesting along those lines, and I've only seen this once or twice, but if it's possible, it's unbelievable. If you can actually give them control and let them work their way. There's a tech out there, and forgive me, I don't know what it's called, but literally you can give them control of the mouse, and then
I think you can do that on Zoom.
Yeah, you can do it in Zoom.
Perfect. See, I'm not a tech guy.
That's the tech you're talking about.
but if you want to really get my attention and make me feel like I'm using your product, right? Let me have control of it. Let me slide things. Let me click on this. Show me how easy it is to use by actually letting me use it. You want to talk about getting someone addicted to something quickly, right?
Yeah.
Now, Nick, in that process, how do you still like maintain control and prevent it from like running hog wild? Because they'd be like, "Ooh, what's this? What's this? What's this? What's this?"
I think if you just set the expectation of, okay, so here's what we'll do. I'm actually going to give you control right now, and I'll walk you through, you know, what we'll look at. But I'd love for you to actually feel it and touch it. Right? It becomes sensory, right? It's like I said before, there's theater to this. So the more that you play on that, the more that they're going to be engaged. And, you know, we haven't really talked about this, but maintaining engagement throughout is the key, because you might have the best product in the world, but if you don't have the person engaged, or their camera's off, or they're on a second screen, then are they really paying attention to what's out there, right?
Earlier, Asia, you asked about like the slide or just the demo thing. I'm a huge advocate for preempt the product demo itself with a presentation, but people will hate your slides if your slides are bad. So the presentation has to be something that tells a story, essentially making the case for why change is a good idea. And so what that does is it tees up, it gives context to the product then. And so if you successfully deliver that presentation, they emotionally buy into the idea of working with you. And then showing the product is really more of just like getting a visual wraparound, like a peace of mind of it, than having to like win on the specific slider bar of the product itself. And to Kamara's point, always like show them something. I think they've got to be walking away having some tangible idea of what could be at hand for them. And I like to advocate for give the drive-through version of the product. Especially if you have a multi-call sale. If it's a one-call close, then maybe you have a different strategy. But even then, I would probably even advocate give the drive-through version of your product. You always have in your back pocket as a potential next step a technical demo where they can go into the weeds of it. But at a first look, and Kamara, you probably got a lot of experience with this, at a first look, what they are seeing, since it's their first time, it cannot come off as overwhelming. And if you show everything your product does, maybe you've used it 100 times, but they never have, and it's going to feel pretty overwhelming.
That's a really great point, Raj.
If they get that little sneak peek as well on the first call, it just tees you up for that technical demo. They go, oh, I remember I saw this. I was thinking about it. And then they all of a sudden come in with more ideas about how it can even impact their business. and their use cases and all of those milestones they're working toward naturally come out because you've given them a glimpse and are working with them to solve their challenges through product.
So Anne put in the chat that she works for a digital marketing agency. So I'd love to hear what you guys think. But one of the things I would do, because look, I get every single day, I get digital marketing agencies reach out to me, right? I mean, every day. So if you do get me in a demo, what I would do is I would really pick, because it all kind of really sounds the same. I would use case studies. So the biggest part of my presentation would be using case studies so that I can start to visualize how my company could have that same kind of success as that other company that you worked with did, right? And I think that's something that's often overlooked is case studies, depending on what you're selling, obviously. But, you know, our client was at A, and they never thought of going to B. We got them there, and now they're at C. And, you know, and when you can really paint that picture, it lets them visualize them having that same kind of success. See, look, Summer works for a digital agency too.
Yeah.
Who doesn't work for a digital marketing agency? This might be quicker.
That's awesome. I want to be cognizant of our time here. So we have about 12 minutes left. Let's go to the next and final topic, which is owning the room with confidence. Nick has touched on this a little bit earlier, but we'll deep dive now. And I actually want to start with Kamara. How does Demostack help you as a rep own the room with confidence?
Yeah. Well, I think it takes away that demo anxiety and the risk associated with not knowing what to show in a demo. So with our technology, you can actually create a replica of your own product within Demostack. And then that is what you build all of your demos off of. So you can even have those vertical specific demos or the ones that are segment specific to pick from when you're going into your call to showcase to your prospect. Above and beyond that, there's all of that customization capability. And so I love using Demostack as a tool because I'm able to do things that are above and beyond just text customization. I can even image replace and do chart editing without updating underlying data. And I know what to expect from my demo because it's predefined. So there aren't going to be any surprises. It loads very quickly as well. So it really builds my confidence because as I go into my call, I know what's in my demo. I know what's going to come up if I click in a certain area, and it really drives the conversation just a little bit more smoothly because I'm not, worried that there's something that's going to pop up unexpectedly or have an issue with the product in itself.
Yeah, I mean, 85% of people said that is what causes them the most anxiety is surprises popping up while they're demoing product. So going in and knowing what's going to happen and not having, oh my gosh, this is going to crash on me, or my instance isn't going to work, or something has changed because everyone's using the same sandbox to demo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And having the ability to also have those things like different pictures or the Mickey Mouse, Walt Disney kind of characters in there for that brand specifically, it gives them more confidence too, because then I'm showcasing something that they think I've spent so much time on. And it's a good feeling to have when you really resonate with the buyer. Your confidence just grows, and then you can really drive home the point and the message, which is how you're going to solve their problem.
Yeah, totally. Nick or
Raj, why don't you go first?
Nick, I feel okay, all right. I'll go quickly, and I'll just say one technique I like to use with clients I've worked with where like certain AEs have just, I don't know, they tend to get shook is, having a hip hop background myself. I like to just borrow, and Nick, you'll appreciate just borrowing from like what works on a stage.
Yep.
Have like a pregame ritual. So whenever I perform a show for a good like 20 minutes before it's time to go up, I will like just go find a corner somewhere, crouch down, talk to no one, drink coconut water, and just like get in the zone. And that's my thing. And I intentionally stop talking to anybody for a good 20 minutes. So you can, like, everyone's going to have their own version of some pregame routine, some ritual that you can do, whether it's the start of your day or if you want to do it before every call, if it's short enough, fine. But something that just like clears your head and allows you to like reconnect with yourself so that you can better connect with other people.
Oh, that's great.
That's fantastic, Raj. You know, that's interesting actually, because one of the things I would do is before every presentation I did on a cruise ship, I would, even though I knew the scripts, I would still spend like 90 minutes rereading through them. Just even though I knew it, like I knew the national anthem, just to have that level of comfort, right? And also, if I have time, if I have a big demo coming up, I'm gonna listen to some hip hop. Like I'm gonna listen to some bangers to get me revved up, right, and motivated. Because, and this is where, from my point of view, owning the room starts to come in. Is you have to own the room, right? So how do you do that? One is, again, if you're talking from a place of knowledge and you know your scripts, you are going to come across as way more confident. But the way that I always open it up is I consider it like someone's coming to visit me in my house, right? Like I'm a hotelier now. Okay, so you're coming to visit me in my house. How am I going to welcome you? I'm going to welcome you with a smile and a, hey, how are you? It's so nice to see you. Thanks for coming today. I really appreciate it, right? And I flip on so many demos where people are like, hello, hi, hi. You have to have some level of energy, right? And it's, listen, I don't
with their camera off too, right, Nick? They're saying hello and their camera's off.
No, but you have to know that someone is there on the other side, right? You have to understand that and acknowledge that and just be comfortable with that fact. But having energy, whatever level of your energy is, raise it 20%, right? Asia doesn't have the same level of energy as I do. Raj is maybe a little bit closer, but if you turn it up.
You caught me on a bad day.
No, I'm teasing.
I know. No. It's all good. It's all good.
But just think about, how do I turn it up 20%, right? And then however you open up your demo, go and practice that in front of a mirror. And this sounds ridiculous. It is incredibly effective because you'll start to understand your facial expressions and your body language and how you are going to be engaging and pull people in, right? But you really need to think of yourself, again, as a hotelier, very hospitable. Thank you, welcome, how you doing? You open with that and you're talking from a place of knowledge, the entire direction of the conversation is going to go in a different place, right? One more thing on this in terms of owning the room, and this ties into a lot of confidence and charisma. How are you lit, right? I have two $35 soft boxes here. You can go on Amazon, just Google softbox. They're $35.
Oh, lit like lighting. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were like, oh, this shit's lit. Or are you high? That was the other thing.
No, I didn't know it was that. Asia left. I didn't know it was that kind of party.
You got to go get lit.
Are we still live, or did this just end? It looks like we
I think we're still on.
We're live.
Yeah. Are we on the chat? Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah, we're live.
But I think it's really critical to how are you lit? What's your camera angle? You want to feel, if you feel you look good, right, on whatever level, you're going to feel a lot more confident. And therefore, you're going to feel much more in control of the conversation. And it is your conversation, right? You own that room. Just because I never say thank you for your time. No. You thank me for my time, right? No, but it's true. Because you're a guest in my house, but I'm going to make you feel really comfortable. I'm going to give you some really great information because you're interested. That's why you're here. You're not coming to a demo if you have zero interest, right? So I think when you just look at those things, a couple things too, always try and keep your camera just like 10 degrees above your eyes and slightly tilted down. If you can, light yourself from either side or get yourself a ring light. And I almost always have a dark monochromatic color against a plain white wall. Because as soon as you start having distraction, like I'm distracted by Raj's background, right? I'm looking at the wrestling belt. I'm looking, at the, it looks like a picture of Kobe over there. No, but seriously, you think about if you go to a really nice steakhouse, right? You go to Morton's or Ruth's Chris, what comes out? A big white plate with the centerpiece, which is the protein. Everything else is on the side. It's not relevant. You want all focus on you. So if you feel like you look good, you feel like you're talking from a place of knowledge and you're bringing the energy right out of the gate, you just do those three things. Watch how much more you close.
See, I've got on that last part, come at me, bro. No, I've got actually like the reverse sort of mindset and motto, which is what creates conversation, right? So like I've had sales calls where people be like, is that a Hamilton book? Are you into Hamilton? And we'll spend 5 minutes talking about our shared love for Hamilton. And then I'm like, well, this is an amazing connection now that we have, which, you want to follow up with the guy who also likes Hamilton or so on and so forth. So I probably could shore it up. It's pretty busy. I was like, here's everything I like. Have it all.
You think it's a mix of the two. You can have a happy medium. I get asked about the plant behind me all the time. It's a huge
because a lot of people are plant people, right? And they want to know, like, oh,
it's fake. Guess what? It's fake.
So you know what's interesting, and I'm really glad you guys you fought me on that, because where I got that from is I create a lot of content on LinkedIn, right? And I have a 20% higher conversion rate when I just have the white wall behind me, which is interesting.
Oh.
So yeah, so but again, it's different. It's content creation versus doing a demo, but maybe I've pulled it in.
Awesome.
And Anne asked, you know, how do you get over overthinking? And just know it. If you know your script, because that actually, Anne, if you're still here, do you have a script? Have they provided you with a script, or are you just kind of talking about digital marketing? You know,
she's here. She's here. She's typing.
She's typing. Yeah. And we're all waiting.
Yeah. It's like the 3 dots in your phone. You're like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
What did I say?
Yeah. You know, scripts, while she's typing with the script stuff, then I think, and I don't know how you like to structure scripts, Nick, but I always try to, like, it's not just that you have the script, but it's within a framework as well. So it's like, can you remember what part of the framework you're in? Yeah. So if you get tripped up, it's like these little like mile markers along the way that get you back on the road.
So 100%. And, you know, I think maybe I didn't say this earlier. I'm a big fan of scripts and having it memorized till you don't need the script anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And then you revert back to the bullet points. So if you know it, you know it. Right. And no one can push you off that. Everyone is going to assume that you know what you're talking about till you prove you don't know what you're talking about. But if you're following a script and you know what it is, then you're tight. Man, this was fun.
Yeah, we've got
with the script thing. If you have that script and you know it, then you can be confident in what you say. But at the end of the day, remember that you're selling to a human being. You're talking to people. People buy from people. So if you have a human connection, don't even worry about it. You will overthink. That will happen. As a sales rep, I do this too, even to this day. And I've been doing enterprise strategic sales for years. So listening, taking a pause and listening really will help you as well. Stop the overthinking, because you'll have to really think about what they're saying to you and how to respond. So you don't need to so much go like 10 steps ahead and think about what they're not going to say or what they're going to think and all of these things that kind of contribute to overthinking. And they're human beings. So, you know, you're totally okay being honest and taking a pause and saying, hey, I'm thinking about these things. How do you think about them? You know, so even surfacing it a little bit too to help with that conversation and the rapport building and all of that. Because again, it's human beings talking to human beings, and that's really what matters.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This is a great way to end it.
Yeah, I know. We're at
that was a mic drop line.
It was a mic drop from Kamara Moodley. Follow her on LinkedIn. She's going to be there all week. Yeah, my internet actually cut out, funny enough, as we're talking about all these technical issues. So.
Wow.
Anyway, my internet cut out, but I'm back and I'm here to close everything up. Thank you so much. I learned a lot. I hope everyone else did too. Thank you, Nick, Kamara, Rajiv. We will see you around at another RevGenius event, maybe at Rev.
Right on. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate y'all.
Great day.
Oh, nice to meet you all. Bye.
Bye.
See you guys.